Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. I've got my main man, Steve Big Beat Orr, the CEO and founder of Quasar Markets with me. Of course, I am Howard Greenberg, your daily host here at Quasar Markets Live. Steve, how are we doing today? It's been a rough 24 hours.
Look, we talked about this for the last 3 weeks, Howard, that geopolitical issues were going to come to a head. Here they are. We saw now with Iran and Israel, that area is igniting. One of the cool things I thought about yesterday was it could have been a lot worse. I know that's hard to say sometimes. The Iron Dome and the Arrow 2 and 3 were put in place many years ago. THAAD, obviously, and don't ask me how I know about all of this stuff, but look, it's very simple. The United States has and the allies have backed Israel pretty heavily, so that this they know it. The world, Middle East knows it, and so it just was an more of an act of attrition than anything. I will say that if you look at the perspective, Iran tried to overwhelm the system, and it got some of them got through, but nothing really happened. So that thankfully, right?
Right.
Um, but this could, if more attacks come and retaliation and tit for tat, this is going to be a lot bigger. And look, I saw social media yesterday. World War III has started. World War 54 has started. Look, no, it hasn't. This has been going on for many, many years in the area. And look, it's unfortunate that it's a situation, but we have to, as traders, think about it from the perspective of investing and how we see the world through not through the prism of media, right? We saw yesterday finally some civility in a debate in the vice president's debate. It seemed that they both respected each other, understood where they, but they didn't agree on terms. Both sides had said weird things. They both apologized. What? That is absolutely asinine. Great. I'm glad to see that kind of civility come back to civil discourse, right? So, look, there are some bright spots that, as we say in the markets, and those bright spots need to be pushed to the forefront and say, hey, look, things are happening here, right? But we still are still dealing with Helene, and we're still dealing with. I understand that look at Chinese stocks right now flying high. So there's a lot going on, Howard, and I think we need to go cover some of these this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of things going on. ADP numbers came out this morning.
Yeah.
Sort of a nothing burger because they hit pretty well. Nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing that wasn't expected. 143,000 new jobs. So right in that realm where they thought it would be. At 10:30, we do have U.S. weekly crude oil. I have a question for you because I wasn't sure. Is that going to tell us what the SPR has done also, or is that more of a business to business look?
No, the SPR, the government has an obligation to tell us when they're filling or taking away from the SPR. What we're going to find out from EIA numbers, and I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to say that's our biggest number, I think, for the week, because it's going to tell us how much has Helene affected the movement of oil around the country, because it's EIA numbers. Now, if you don't know, there's Jody and there's OPEC numbers and there's EIA, and EIA is the United States numbers. And I'll tell you, I am very interested in looking at refining stocks. Though that's the after been to refiner and where are they going? That's what I want to know. Did Helene affect the refineries? There's several in the Louisiana area. Did they shut down some of them? Right? How much pumping was shut down in the Gulf? And when you look at weekly crude, and you'll also look at going all the way through North Carolina, there are lines that run the pipelines through there. So there's a lot of issues here that I want to see, but I don't expect. I expect some weird numbers coming out of it that we'll have to think about.
Yeah, without a doubt. That definitely is on top of mind. Oil all around. We've seen WTI go up. We've seen Brent above 75 here. So we're definitely seeing those move in the right direction. Seeing gold retrace a little bit this morning. I'm a little surprised by that. Usually that flight to safety there. So we'll see. Chinese markets are closed. Hong Kong market was open. Hit a 20-month high, up 6.2%. So definitely seeing some strength there. Like you mentioned, we're going to talk more here this morning about that. And I'm going to try to get Jeremy Vreeland on from Bullish Bulls with me later on to take a look at some of these Chinese names. I mean, if you pull up like Baba here, I mean, it's crazy what it's shot up here. You can't tell me that all of the problems that China was facing, especially when it comes to, their real estate issues, and other issues, that all got solved yesterday.
But
But we've
look,
seen,
I've said this over the last 3 months that I was investing in India and China. Why? Because I felt that the U.S. markets were frothy. I felt that we were overbought. We're seeing that now, and we're seeing. But when things are overbought on our side, there's a market somewhere, right? And when we look at that, we have to figure out, okay, what's next? And I thought it was India, and I thought it was China. And I look at the India market; it's exploding. The markets are pushing higher. There's a lot of going on. I had a long chat with some Indians over the week, and one of the things that they're talking about, 800 million Indians are going to move from the lower caste system to middle class in India. 800 million. That's more than double the size of the United States moving. The United States is only 360 million people. 800 million are moving from the lower class to the middle class, and how many middle class are going up to upper class? Yeah, this is a big deal. So that's a lot of consumption in one country.
yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. So, as I was saying, what I'm going to look at later today, either just by myself on here or with Jeremy Vreeland, is some of these that are moving up to 52-week highs, like Alibaba. We may be looking here and just looking quickly at this daily chart. I'm saying, wow, we're running to the same resistance we saw in, April of
Right.
2022, January of 23. So we see some pretty good historical resistance coming up here. Is now the time to maybe short it or not? So I'll get on with you, give some pivot points. We don't tell you what to trade here, but I'll tell you where you should be looking at it, where I'll be looking at it, and what kind of plays you could look at
I'll
there.
tell
Because
you, Howard, I'm not shorting, but I am taking my profit here. I think it's time to take some profit off on some of these funds. I've done 60, 70% returns on some of this stuff, and you know what? That's just silly for me. Everybody here knows I like to take profit, put it in the bank, and I'm going to do that. Some of my mutual funds that I moved into China and India, take some of that profit off.
absolutely. What else do we have going on? Obviously, Middle East has been the talk of everything today. Longshoremen, I'm seeing, we talked about this yesterday, and we're seeing more and more news about it, CNBC. And I was surprised because Andrew Ross Sorkin, who's usually the man of the people, right? He was one of the ones railing against Harold Daggett and sort of the longshoremen. That we talked about it. We saw it. He came out and put a video out where he just literally says, "We're going to cripple the country. We're going to blow this thing up if we need to. We're the most important people in the world, and no one else
That's not
matters."
good faith. That's not good faith, right? I mean, good
Yeah,
faith.
and you're
Okay, look,
seeing that turn and mentality, and you're seeing the articles come out with how much longshoremen make, and all this other stuff. And I always think people should make as much as they can, and I don't want to cut someone's earning powers, but I do think that the tide is turning a little bit versus that union, and it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out here. We talked yesterday about all of the issues that it brings into play, and how much GDP gets hurt, how much everything moves, and it affects retail, it affects every part of industries, cars, all that. On the other side, from some of these things, we are seeing Western railroads. So something that we might want to take a look at later today is some of these railroads that come from the western part of the U.S., from the ports, that will be bringing these goods now that they start to reestablish trade routes, different ports that will be getting more and more goods in. So we definitely want to keep an eye on that today. As we start to look at the market here, about 20 minutes from open, QQQ down about 0.13, SPY down about 0.16. Do you think we see a little bounce back today, Steve, or you think we still got a little bit more to the downside here, a little malaise in the markets today?
More downside.
More downside today. Okay.
One thing that we just said, Tesla just released their deliveries, and they missed on deliveries again. Some they made, some they didn't, but for the majority of them, they didn't make their deliveries. There seems to be a slowdown. I think
And you
I
can
don't think
see
it's
that
a
here.
malaise. Yeah, I don't think it's just a malaise in the markets. It's everywhere, right? I think in Main Street and Wall Street are now starting to connect. I've said this a while. Look, something's not right. There's no connect between Main Street and Wall Street. Why? You know, people are bullish, and the markets in the world isn't great. Now it's being pushed to Main Street news, MSM, I think we'll call it, right? Main Street media. Look, this is a problem, right? And now we're starting to see things come together. And guess what? We've been talking about this for months, and now the Fed finally saw it, come in with a 50 basis point hammer last week, and or 2 weeks now, and we were seeing it. We're seeing what's happening now. It's really coming out. Oh, we weren't behind the curve. Yes, you were behind the curve, right?
Yeah.
It just is what it is. So yeah.
Tesla down about 3.5% on that news. Did see Treasury yields moved up a little bit here after the paycheck report from the ADP, seeing the U.S. 10-year up about 0.065, 2-year up 0.047. So seeing that move up a little bit after those reports. The Tesla one, that's going to draw on everything today. NVIDIA was having a weak pre-market too. So some of the big ones, although that's now gone positive, so that's good. They've now gone back to the positive side. There. Other ones I was taking a look at today is Lamb & Wesson. We talked about this yesterday, down about 5%. They're
What
actually
did
going
I
to
say?
restructure. You know, we had talked
What did I say?
about this yesterday
What
on
did
the
I
show.
say about French fries? Blah. That nobody's going to eat them because it's
Yeah.
fried food and everybody's on weight loss drugs.
Yep, 4% workforce reduction. They're looking at halting some
Oh
production
my
lines
goodness.
around the U.S. They're also going to take a one-time hit, and with this restructuring of about $200 to $250 million for inventory write-downs, accelerated depreciation, and severance costs. If you're going to lay off,
Oh wow. Ooh.
you know, if 4% of your workforce. So they pointed to restaurant sales, like we've been talking about, down about 3%, and that's where their volumes are getting hurt. Another one getting hit here today is Harley Davidson Hog. They got a pretty big downgrade from 40 to 44, from 44 to 40, excuse me, from Baird analyst. He said he's been talking to a lot of the dealers, reporting weak retail, excess inventory, and a caustic sentiment. So definitely didn't expect to see that word used in talking to it. So we see that moving in the wrong direction here this morning. Let me grab my list of other ones here I wanted to take a look at. So Nike's down about 6% here. After saying they tempered sales expectations and would offer shorter-term forecasts in the upcoming months. So down about 7% here in Nike, getting hit pretty hard with that. Hadn't seen any changes to any analyst reports yet, but I expect that we could see some of that.
Downgrades will come in. The downgrades
Yep.
will come later this afternoon, probably maybe even early this morning. Um, Look, to me, gosh, during the pandemic, you're talking about $178 a share stock. That's now down to $80. I'm not. The problem with me is clothing in general, right? People aren't going out there and buying new clothes. They're just not doing it, and they just don't have a Michael Jordan now to support them anymore. Um, I don't know. I think Nike continues to fall here.
Yeah, what I would say, yeah, it doesn't have the relevance anymore, in my opinion. Now,
Right.
I don't know if that's because we've gotten older, so we're not as much in trend. But I would say that I think there's a lot of other things. You see, I mean, Under Armour, you couldn't see a stock that's done worse performing over the last few years there too. On the other side, Paychex, while it's down a little bit this morning, had really good earnings report yesterday. They have seen some upgrades. Deutsche Bank upgraded them to 148 from 115. So that was good to see. They, saying that there's still they're seeing a lot of outsourcing by companies. So one of the changes that they're seeing is a lot of outsourcing that benefits them. They do payroll and human resources. So Paychex was up pretty well on that news. Shares of LPL, not a company I was that familiar with, but this one is one of those ones. If you had this on your bingo card, good for you. But they are down 4% after it said it fired its chief executive officer for allegedly
Mm.
violating the financial advice firm's rules on respectful workplace. And you can
Oh
see
wow.
that, down about a point yesterday, and expected to see even more of a drop here this morning. They don't trade pre-hours. Humana, another one that's got hit pretty hard here this morning, down about 11.77%. And they announced yesterday that they had already heard from Medicare that Medicare was downgrading their analyst or their rating on the most popular offering that Humana has, that's responsible for about 45% of their actual revenue. So Humana getting hit real hard here on basically a government, downgrade. Steve, you
You
started.
know,
Oh, go ahead.
you when I look at UNH, United Health,
Yep, I have
we
it there.
saw the exact same thing back. I don't know, probably back about uh, was it back early part of September, I think. Big sell off in UNH, right? And I was like, wait a minute, wait. That's silly to me. UNH, because quite frankly, everybody's on Blue Cross Blue Shield or United Healthcare. One of the two they're on, and there was a big sell off in UNH.
Yeah, they
And
dropped from about 606 down to 568.
and today they're back near the high all-time highs. They're at $600 a share again, right? This is what I think could happen in Humana too as well. I think I like Humana here, but give it another day to shake out. Down 20%, it just doesn't seem to be smart. Um, this is too much selling here, right? This is not. To me, it feels like a little bit of option trading here too as well. But I don't know. Humana right now, I'm looking at it right now, their PE ratio as of today, okay, right, as of right now, is 15.7. Okay, I get it. They're breaking up from Aetna. I get it. They're breaking up from CVS Health. Okay, so is everybody else. Nothing's going to change. Humana Health is still Humana Health. They still have the same people in there. I just don't. I don't see that. If you look at this stock and you think about it from the perspective of where it was, this was a $400 stock, even higher than that. I think go back even further. Gosh, yeah. Um,
I mean, basic
Almost
EPS on them is 1409 here on TradingView. I have pulled
1409
up.
right now. Yeah,
Yeah.
right with the new numbers. Look, that is not that this is still a growth company. People are adding. No one's not got insurance, right? So
Right.
for health insurance, right? It's legally have to binding. You have to have health insurance. So I don't know. I think it's a little bit wonky. Give it a little bit of time. Humana will come right back.
I mean, yeah, in 2 days it's going to be down 30% at open here. It was
Right.
down to
Yeah.
almost 12
Look,
yesterday,
you
down
heard
29.
Jay Wood yesterday saying he likes things on sale.
Yeah,
So do I. Right. If
yeah,
you're going to
same
be
thing.
silly, if you're going to be silly and sell, then go ahead. Guess what I'm going to do? I like dumb money. So
Yeah, you said scared money, makes it easier for the rest of us. So,
right.
Steve, we got to go back to the storm here. I saw just a
Yeah.
crazy article today about quartz,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
is in basically every chip. And there is a town in North Carolina that basically is responsible for 80 to 90% of the what they call the ultra pure purity quartz used in semiconductor manufacturing.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Spruce Pine, North Carolina, it's right outside of Asheville. And, this isn't something that's going to happen overnight, and I saw this geologist that said, you're talking about the southern Appalachian Mountains with a lot of unique geological features. Economically, this deposit is one of the most important on Earth. And that's comparing it to all commodities, not just saying for quartz, we know it's the
Right.
most important for quartz, but it is the most important there. And this is the sole source of a crucial chip ingredient. So, what do you think about that?
You're right. When as consumers, right? We don't always know what goes in our products, right? We don't go looking in their toothpaste and go, "Ooh, look, it's got fluoride. Ooh, look, it's got quartz in it." It does. Look, there's a lot of things that quartz uses, and quartz silica and glass. Glass is being a main one for quartz. Um, I'm gonna go deeper than this on quartz. The state of North Carolina got absolutely hit hard with this storm.
Yeah.
And most people don't realize that North Carolina, I had to look it up myself, so I'm not got it all in my head. $42.2 billion of exports last year.
Yeah,
Forty-two
a
point
lot
two
of stuff's made
billion
in North
dollars.
Carolina. A lot of companies went down there, like, the car companies. There's a ton of car production there. That's where
Biotech,
That's where Boeing's non-union plant
Boeing,
is.
right? And it's one of our biggest exports for chemicals. There are some problems, and this Helene has really caused some problems, probably bigger than people think. There might be some supply chain issues here in North Carolina, especially now with longshoremen. North Carolina is also on the coast,
Yep.
so look, there's a lot of things going on here with Helene that we did not expect.
Yeah, I mean the highway that I take from North Carolina to Ohio, which then merges into 70, which is the interstate highway that goes across to Chicago, that is used for all of our basic, movement. That's why there's so many
Yeah,
warehouses in Indiana and Ohio. That's why, hubs for Caterpillar and, from Caterpillar to Crocs is what way I always say it. All have, their main warehouses around here. That highway's gone. It fell
yeah,
into the river. That's, it's in the Ohio River now. So yeah,
yeah.
there's going to be a long time till that gets fixed. It's not an easy fix, and what it is, it's so mountainous if you've ever driven it. That's what
Uh,
happened is, yeah, a lot of people are safe, let's say, and they're not, at risk of being flooded, but then they couldn't get out of their homes to get down to the rest of the world,
right.
unfortunately. So it's going to be interesting to watch that, um, play out here, unfortunately, over the next few weeks. We definitely do there. I wanted to find some, what, I have to bring this up because I tried to do some research today to see after, conflict, how long does the market usually take to bottom out? Because as we talked about, there might be some good buying opportunities here on pullbacks and things like that. I wasn't able to find any real, everything contradicted itself. I found one chart that said, it took the bottomed out after, after we invaded Iraq in 2 days and it recovered in 18. I found another one that said it took 15 months. So I really couldn't find any good information there. I think it's just muddied waters when it comes to that. I think one person's, and what I took away from that is one person's prediction on what the bottom is very different than what somebody else's, theory of what the bottom was, might be. So that was there. So I do apologize. I'm sure people were expecting to see us talk about that today, but you really can't because I just found too much conflicting information. I didn't want to just throw numbers out there at people for no reason. So I will say that. As we are about 8 minutes away here, what are you watching today, Steve? What are you going to be keeping your eye on?
So as you know, I'm a little nervous because I'm 25 for 25 in trading in Nvidia and a few other stocks, right? I'm leaving Nvidia alone today. Look, I kind of like this Humana play. I've been just looking at it again. I kind of like it a lot, actually. This this buy here could be very interesting. I'm looking at it from a 1 hour perspective,
That's
chart
this
1 hour
chart right
chart.
I have right here.
Yeah, and I really look. You can see there that it's starting to put in a little bit of a bottom there. You've now seen a few days of Humana getting beaten up. We probably are at the level of which it can probably be. I'm not telling anybody with it, but we don't do that here. But um, I think I might pick some up today. I think this might be a smart move here. I mean, if you look at it from the, I'm gonna pull up a big chart for myself here in front of me, but I like the 1 hour chart here. It's really really clean. It's we're way out of the lines. I don't know if can I share my chart here? I don't know if
Give
I
me
can
one
or
second to get that ready for you.
yeah.
Steve, I don't see it shared on the Video Ninja.
Yeah, let me get one
Oh,
second here.
sorry.
And
Yeah, sorry about that.
I know everybody's going to be saying, "Oh my God, look at all of Steve's charts." You'll notice that this is my 1 hour chart on Humana. I'm going to pull it up just a little bit tighter for you. Um, Yes, I get it. We're way out of the Williams VIX fix, which means that how is the VIX on this? We haven't seen things like this. The last time we saw it was a few days there. We're on balance volume. Everybody's selling. Great, love that. And then you'll see right here with our RSI, um, it is turning. We're also seeing on the MACD turn as well, and the volume has also slowed down a little bit. So I'm going to pull up a daily chart so everybody can get a better idea of what I'm talking about. Let me pull it up. There you go. You would have to go back all the way back to the COVID dips, right? 205, 218. There's a heavy support there at 235. And this is why we're here now, right? There's a big support right here at 287. So for me, this is a very interesting place here. I like this. And on balance volume is telling me that we might be there. We're pretty much there. I'll show you there. Right there it is. So you can see right here, this was a buying opportunity the last two times. So I like this, but this is more of a longer term play. Humana is not one of those that just turns around the day and goes up, especially considering there are some issues. But we've seen it. There's 2020, so we'll discount COVID. There's the first of COVID, right, in the run. But then if we go back, the biggest dip there was back in 2016, and another dip there in 2015. But the rest of it, my goodness gracious, look at that, all the way back. It's just
Well,
crazy.
you can see
So
it's entering that spot where it bounced in May of 2019.
look at that. You're seeing the same thing. You're seeing the craziness of COVID selling there, right? And here's where we're spiking on the VIX fix here. So the MACD is telling you it's turning around. You're seeing those different points. So I do like Humana here. Yeah,
I will
but I
say
don't know.
too, it's about as
I don't know.
oversold as you can get on RSI here, down at like
Yeah,
23.
yeah. I don't know if we're there yet. But my eye is on Humana today.
Yeah.
Bitcoin's holding up here, Howard. 61,000. Yeah, I get it. It was 66,000 not too long ago. I understand that, but we don't sell our Bitcoin here, right? We just trade it, and we keep our originals. But
It's
yeah,
coming and it's coming up on the 200-day MA here, which is going to be its key. It bounced off that level earlier. That's going to be the key level to watch today, the 200 MA. There, yeah, it brought us right back down to pretty much the midpoint on daily linear regression, the midpoint on our price channel. It took a 50% retracement. That's, our man Jeremy Vreeland, who's the king of Fibonacci there, will tell you this is a normal thing. The question's going to be, does it break below? If it breaks below that 200, you could see it. We've seen the retracements back down to those 53, 55 levels. So I'll definitely, today's a day to keep an eye on Bitcoin. It could be a volatile day because, that 200 is pretty much a line in the sand with Bitcoin. If you look at it here, there's not often that if it breaks through one way or the other, that doesn't have an extended run to one side or the other. So definitely something to keep an eye on when it comes to that.
I'm looking at the Humana, some of the news coming in on here. One of the things that I'm seeing here is that they're saying that Humana is falling because of enrollment in top-rated Medicare Advantage plans. If you don't know what Medicare Advantage is, for those people that are over 65, get Medicare, Medicaid, right? But I'm not close to that yet, Howard. So don't say anything. But
I'm closer than you, I believe. So
you are a little bit. But I will say this much: when you're looking at Humana, there's more people that are getting older in the world than there are. I get it that there is a lot of the baby boomers are dying off. I understand that, but I also know that more people are coming onto the plan. So I don't really see that yet. The question is whether or not they're going to Humana's plans. I don't know that case, but I will say this much: if people are taking weight loss drugs and they're getting healthier, and there's more of a thought around not processed foods, because I'm as guilty as anybody,
yep.
Maybe Humana's profits are better, right? That's key.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I do know that from the CVS report there, they want to sell off their insurance side because they're getting killed by Medicare, by the new prescription rules and stuff like that. So that's going to have a big play when it comes into the insurance over the next couple of years. On the foresight has been, how much the gouging of prescription drugs is involved in there. Some other ones that hit earnings recently, Conagra. was dropping a little bit here this morning. That's CAG for those that don't know.
And let's go with the sympathy plays too. Let's look at Monsanto as well.
But they pointed to the fact that they are hitting a challenging environment, like you said. Part of that being people, they're Duncan Hines. There are a lot of the processed foods that people eat that now we're trying to sort of get rid of. There, so that tends to be part of the problem that we see when it comes to a Conagra and those. There you can see on this chart, it's just getting hit pretty hard here, down about 8.65%. This morning, now down about 7.8. It's moving. It's trying to bounce back up here over the last 3 minutes. So we're doing it. The market is open here. We are open. Let's see what we got. Tick. Ooh, minus 576 here. I'm seeing.
Yeah, I don't see anything going on. But this Humana deal here, I'm really starting to, wow, yeah, look at that. 28 now, 220.49, yeah, 219, 221. I had a feeling that people are getting a little bit overbearing on Humana here. I think it's a little much.
Yeah, and like we've talked about this a lot here. We're seeing a lot of buy the dips, and that's what tends to happen on these, right? People are seeing those, saying there isn't, like you just said, there isn't a reason for it to be down anywhere near where it is right now. So why is that happening?
All right, I am buying shares now. I just did. I bought 219.50. Looks like I think I got some shares there at. Nope. Yeah, should be getting them now. Order return hasn't come in yet, interestingly enough.
Huh. Just trying to get through the VWAP here on the 3-minute chart. If it does, that's usually a good sign. VWAP is such as we talked with Jay Woods yesterday, and he pointed out VWAP. So many of the quant traders, so much of the algorithms use the VWAP. If Warren Buffett says he's buying whatever it is, that's what he has his traders doing, trying to buy it at the VWAP. So when you bounce through that, you tend to see a nice move one way or the other. We are approaching it right here. 221.55 now there, Steve.
Yeah, I think you're seeing a little bit of buying here in the NASDAQ here. Yeah, some buyers coming in. I can tell you, I don't.
And QQQ just threw blue. Oh, get through that VWAP, buddy.
That's what I was saying. I think we see some buying stepping in here.
Yeah, we do a little bit. It's trying to get through that VWAP. It's battling it right here. There it goes. Oh. I will tell people, please hang on. At 10 o'clock today, we do have Mr. Currency himself, Stephen Flanagan, in, former head of FX at JP Morgan for 40-some-odd years, here to break it down. Today, we're going to ask him a little bit about what his plays are here on the Middle East crisis. Is there anything there for him to work on? I also have some questions about Bank of Japan, which is talking about raising interest rates here over the next couple of months and what he thinks about that. So it should be a great episode with him here today. Bitcoin now in the positive, moving up a little bit, 6,800.
I'm in at 217.50 on the Humana. Might be a little early. I don't know yet. We'll see. But
looking at a couple of the ones that Scott Bauer brought to us yesterday, talked about if he saw a little bit move back on Costco here today, he would be looking at maybe a buy. He gave us what his thoughts were at that 200-day moving average, and you can see we are right at that 200-day moving average on the SMA. So those of you that watched that episode yesterday here with Scott, he's thinking that this could be a buy to the upside with Costco. His reasoning behind there, for those that didn't see it yet, was Costco is really well positioned when it comes to inventories right now. Their CEO came out and said that they're at almost all-time highs. They were getting ready for the longshoremen's strike. And the second part of that was that, like we saw in, when we do have supply chain issues, big box stores tend to be a winner, right? If I can get 100 rolls of toilet paper instead of 4 at a time when they're having trouble supplying me, I'm going to buy the 100. So that's one there. IWM, another one that he was looking at, which is, of course, the Russell 2000 looks at small caps. He was looking for that at a pullback here if it gets down to that 214. We're not near there yet, so that is one he was looking at. He didn't give us a figure. WTI was one that he was looking to short, Steve. How do you feel about that? He thinks that oil, what happened in the Middle East is just a temporary blip, and it didn't change his thesis on the fact that the Saudis are going to release a decent amount of oil here, and that could, and that there is less demand for oil. We've seen that in China, Europe, even here in the U.S. So what are your feelings on those three moves by Scott Bauer?
Well, WTI is different than Brent North Sea, so I think he's somewhat right. Actually, WTI has got a base now, but I wouldn't be shorting oil right now. I definitely wouldn't be shorting oil, but I wouldn't definitely be going long oil either. I think
Like we talked about, no trade is the trade.
we
Sometimes
are watching humanity now. Look at that nice little pop there back at the top, but oil right now seems to be a little bit wonky. I would leave it alone right now. There's too many issues in the oil markets right now, so I would leave it alone. Wow, look, that was a nice little move back to the upside there on humanity. I think shorts were probably covering a little bit. Nasdaq getting smacked right here. I'm not. I mean, I'm not in the Nasdaq issues here. It's people are just selling at this point. People are just scared.
Tick seems to be moving at least towards the positive here. It was down much further at 4,500. Now down about 69 here. So let's see if we can get some buyers to step in. As we know, first 15 minutes of the day, we've just seen this huge move one way or the other that's been that's seen no follow through throughout the rest of the day. We've actually usually seen what comes in the first 15 minutes here has been quickly bought up or sold off over the last few weeks. So let's see what we get here. Steve, one of your favorites, silver, back almost to that 32 handle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 32 seems to be a tough place for it, but I do like silver. I own physical and I own some futures on it too as well. But I will tell you right now, it's a trading vehicle more than anything. I remember was it a few years back when the Wall Street Bets group were gonna corner the market on silver, right? Sorry, you're not gonna corner the market.
That was tried before. By
I went to jail, right? Yeah. So no, and they had billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. This isn't like buying GME or AMC. So this is no. But I do like because countries are hoarding silver right now, and that's to me. If you don't know silver in Mexico is big. So we can probably talk to Mr. Steve Flanagan today about silver and the peso.
I do have the peso on our questions for him today. Like I said, I definitely want to see. He had mentioned that pair, the Mexican USD, as a possible good trading pair here in the short term. So we will definitely follow up with him here today. Man, these Chinese stocks just continue to keep moving up. Temu up another 4.85% here. NEO up 4.34%. JD up 8% again today. Like I said, I don't agree with those.
Alibaba, it seems like Alibaba's got the level. I might just start taking some of these off of my. I've had a nice run, shall we say, on the China stock. So I think it's probably time to take some profit here.
Yeah. Well, you know my feeling. I'm looking for levels. I'm not saying again myself that I'm short and starting today, but I'm taking a look at some of these levels because some of these are starting to hit what have been hit. Like you said, we looked at Humana for historical support. There's some historical resistance on some of these that they're approaching that I do think gives us a spot there. So Just something to keep an eye on. Let's see what else is moving here this morning.
Yeah, need another pop there in Humana, and I think we're off to the races a little bit.
We'll say
Got to the
Salesforce has had a nice little run up here, up about 1.1% today. Ever since about September 6th, we've seen a nice run up by Salesforce. IBM getting hit pretty hard today, 1.5% down. Seeing the automakers getting a little bit of love today. GM up about 0.75, Stellantis up 0.29. We talked about NEO already. Apple almost down another point here. Apple definitely been getting hit here over the last few days, huh, Steve?
Apple is Apple. Look, they've been trying to push it that they're everything's fine at Apple, but everything ain't fine. Everything's not fine. There's a little bit of worm in that Apple.
Conagra down now 8% here, losing some momentum again over the last few minutes here. Levi Strauss, I didn't mention earlier, they do report earnings later today. Chinese again, XPeng moving up, which is stock XPEV, another EV producer out of China. Li up 3.5% there.
I have now sold all of my Chinese mutual funds.
You heard it here. Wow, Steve, we'll have to ask Steve Flanagan about USD Japan up to 145 here, 145.60, up 1.44% today. So seeing some currency moves there. Tell you what's been moving up nicely here too. We talked about it yesterday. iPower. I've been keeping my eyes on it. iPower, one of those EV charging companies. They've been moving up. Blink had been moving up too. Let me find that here on my list. Actually, I'll just type it in. It's quicker.
218 on Humana there. We're seeing Iran's president has now arrived in Qatar on a scheduled visit there. So I wonder what they'll be talking about there.
Yeah. Lunar getting hit today, 1.45 down. Moderna down about 1.5. So biotech getting hit pretty hard here today.
I think the selling is done in Humana, to be honest with you.
That'd be good to hear for a lot of people.
We're also seeing CRN, that Salesforce, up 1.1%. I had a feeling that.
Up. Yep.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I can see that for sure. AI.
Yeah, they've had a nice run since September 6th, as I pointed out.
You said it right.
Yeah.
I was had a speaking engagement with family offices, and I said, "Tell me, out of the AI, who should I invest in? Invest in the companies that have data already." And I mentioned Salesforce several times. Oh, I don't know about Salesforce. Well, there you go. 220.20 now back on Humana. I had a feeling that we were going to push back up. So, look at those of you who are hanging out with me. There we go.
Seeing Zeo Energy up here about 3.3%. One of the ones I brought up last week when we were looking for plays after the CEG big move up about 3% here today. Bitcoin back down on a negative here today. Trying to see if there's any winners here across crypto. Not really. Bitcoin miner is getting hit pretty hard here. Mara down 1.13, Wolf down 3. TerraWolf down 3.2%. Bit down 2.77, a Hive down 1.35. So we are definitely seeing the Bitcoin-based miners getting hit, public companies. CCL still not recovering since earnings. They're down another 2.83% here at 1751. And we see
Nasdaq
that
still selling off
Goldman
here.
Sachs, Wells Fargo, Barclays, Mizuho, and Citigroup have set price targets for CCL between 24 and 26. So even with that news from analysts, it's trading at 1752 right now. So
And we're
analysts
going
definitely
into the
seem to be.
holiday season. I can tell you right now, the cruise ports are jam packed. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, I saw the Carnival CEO on CNBC, and he said record bookings look great, everything looks great. One of their biggest costs is the gas and oil. I know it's not the same fuel we use, but that's one of their biggest costs. That's going
diesel.
down. Yeah, so that's what I mean, and that's why I'm pointing it out because it's just continuing to hit to the downside. SMCI down below 40 here. 1.38% down here. McCormick Spice Company had earnings yesterday, down about 2.24% here. Yeah, market's not looking very strong so far. Tick still negative now, back around 270. I did see HSBC raised their price target on McCormick to 96 and gave it a buy rating. So like I said, if people that have a wish list, today might be a day that you get to go out and shop your wish list. And just for those
221 now on Humana. All right, some buyers coming into Bitcoin here, 60,800 here again. So, yeah.
volume's still pretty light in general.
Yep.
We're only seeing about $1 million in volume on the SPY here in 15 minutes. That's fairly small, to be honest with you. SPY now down 0.6. RUT down a half a point. RUI down half a point. So we are seeing a drop across the board here, even on these small.
Jumping the tick here. Tick jumped quite nicely there, up to
Oh,
400.
tick just went positive 399. There you go.
Yeah.
Here we go. That did give a nice burst up.
Boom. Yeah. I was seeing a pop there in Bitcoin. Had a feeling we were seeing some buyers stepping right back in here.
Yeah. We've said most mornings when we've seen that initial downfall, we've seen buyers step in, buying those dips. Let's see here.
Wow, tick up 600 now.
Yeah, tick is moving. Here we go. Here comes some buyers. Bitcoin packed positive on the day. Silver up about almost 2% here. Brent up almost 2%. WTI up almost 2% on the day. Seeing Boeing trying to get to positive.
Bitcoin
here.
really pushing now, 61,130 now.
Bank of America now up here. Got a nice little candle here you can see over the last hour. Moved up about 50 cents from 39.05 to 39.45. Nice little move there by Bank of America. We are seeing a little bit of selling here on Baidu.
700 now on the tick. Whew. 750 now on the tick. Somebody's coming in.
Salesforce now up 1.9% on the day, Steve.
I'm telling you, people saying it's AI is dead or AI is hype, and no, it's definitely not. Look at that. Nasdaq just popped a little bit. Yeah, I had a feeling that buyers were going to
some of the big boys getting some love. Oracle up almost a point here now. Palantir just went flat on the day, trying to move positive. Qualcomm now up a half a point. Snapchat up 1 point. your UNH up 2.13 here this morning, so definitely a sympathy play. If Humana is going to lose customers, who benefits from that? Like you said, UNH, right?
Yeah, best in class. But for Humana to lose that many, I don't think it's happening, right? It's
Right.
just down how much over the last 3 days? Yeah, no, it's no.
Market's trying to get excited here. The tick still up. See, the Dow Jones has gone positive here,
Yeah.
42,173.
And Bitcoin is still pushing, so we're still seeing buyers stepping in here.
Bitcoin 61,206. So that's probably inflows into some of those ETFs we're seeing right now. That tends to be what moves it here in the morning. Silver now up 2.46% on the day, Steve, 32.17. So it might try to challenge that 33 spot you talked about.
Oops, dropping the silver here.
We know you're not selling it. It's in your hand.
It's in my hands. Well, I have lots of silver, but most of my silver is in futures. But yeah, lots of silver. Thanks to
CrowdStrike
Mr.
just went up 1 point on the day, so we are definitely
And you
seeing
can
the
buy.
market.
Sorry, you can buy silver and gold right on the platform here too as well.
AU secure, absolutely. Peter Thomas, one of the best in the business.
I would almost venture to say the best in the business, to be honest with you.
I'm with you there. I didn't want to put him on the spot like that. Snowflake trying to go positive here. So we are seeing a lot of the mega caps trying to move up here. One that is not, Tesla now down 5.59% on the day. That hourly wick is ugly to look at there, huh?
Yeah.
I guess you could fade the Musk today. Let's take a look at the S&P 500. Biggest movers on the day. CZR so far. CZR up about 5.2%. Humana, the big loser, down 21.3, followed by Conagra down 8.2, followed by Nike 7.5. What I will point out is we're seeing some earners losers, right? A lot of these are based on their quarterly earnings reports. Caesar Palace is leading the S&P here, up 5.2%. Again, a lot of that's a play on China, right? Is Macau. They are the huge casinos in Macau, and they move up. You know what I haven't looked at in a long time, Steve? Your old favorite. What was it? MLCO? What was Melco?
Yeah, Melco. Yeah, the Latin American Amazon.
No, the Macau casino that we were playing in COVID. I'm talking about
Oh
Melco
yes, of
Resorts
course.
Entertainment.
Yeah.
They are moving up here. You see, they broke through that trend line here, that upper trend line. So again, China and casinos moving up. We've talked about all of the gambling getting done, whether it be sports betting and everything else. So Nvidia still down a little over half a point here this morning. So, that initial burst, I'm seeing a little bit of a sell-off here in QQQ now. Same with SPY. Not big, but a little bit of a sell-off there after that pump.
Bitcoin trying to keep pushing up a little bit here.
Yeah, 61,190. So it regained that key spot. That was a key spot we talked about. 61, 250 area is where you got to kind of watch here. Is going to be the first spot that you keep an eye on for resistance, and it's right at it right now. So up about 0.71 on the day. Brent just broke above 75 here, Steve.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shorting oil at all. I don't. Yeah.
Baba just broke 115 here. Intel up about 0.31. Seeing retail get a little bit of love here today. Nordstrom's up about 0.41. Kohl's up about 0.63.
I really need Humana to break above now. We're at 220. Keep sitting there at 220. I really need to
I
break
saw that
above the
was
two.
going sideways there on the short-term chart.
We just need to break above that 220 handle, and I think we go right on up again. There we go. Come on, baby.
That seems to be the battle in the sand right now, right at 220.
There we go. Bitcoin 61,300 now. And another little bit of a run here in the tick. So tick up fit 500, holding up there. Woo. So buyers are stepping in.
Bitcoin coming right up on that 3-minute VWAP here. That's a big one people watch. 61,360 today. 61,360. You can see first attempt rejected at that VWAP. We are seeing most of crypto turn positive here. One of your favorites, SHIB, up now 1% on the day.
Shiba, baby.
Yeah, I see most of them are getting rejected at the VWAP, though, here that I'm looking on the short-term chart. Solana, though, up to 145.49. Matic in the positive. Litecoin in the positive.
Come on, Humana. Let's go. Let's go.
Ripple back below that 60 handle at 58.49. It just can't hold above 60 cents right now. VIX up to about 1950 here. So after dropping at the open, we do see it starting to level off.
There we go. Come on, Bitcoin. Let's go. Let's run.
UNH now up 1.58%, moving still in the right direction. iPower at the high of the day up 6.31 here. This looks like a momentum runner here. It's been moving since it bottomed out here on September 20th around 114. It's now up to 220.
221.72 now. I had a feeling if it'd pop, it'd get that over 220. We'd see a pop in Humana. 221.75 there. Look at that. Nice. Get up that 222 there, and 221.50 now. Come on.
Children's Place up here today. It has retraced one that we've been watching here on the show the last couple of weeks that had made an explosive move up after the announcement of a huge investment from the Saudi banking firms. Apollo Global up about 1.87% here. That's after they announced that they expect to see a 20% growth in its asset management and 10% in its retirement plans over the next 5 years. I managed to drop my headphone here. Okay. Microsoft still down about a half a point here this morning. Good to see Kroger moving back up here about 0.76. It had gotten hit pretty hard yesterday. XLF going positive here, so we do see financial sector moving up a little bit today, about 1/4 of a point. Another of the EV monolithic power moving up here about a point also. New core up about 1.37 mining company there.
And I just took my profit on Humana. Not as much as I wanted to take, but right out there, 221.97 looks like.
Nice, great trade there, Steve.
222, 23. Look at that. I couldn't hold it for a second longer, but it's okay. We made money. Yeah, I had a feeling that that was where it was at, and well done. Yeah, 26 for 26 now, huh?
There you go. Steve, I
223 now,
do see
55.
Stephen Flanagan walking into the room here today, so let me get us set up to bring him on in here. Our man, Mr. Currency. We have lots of great questions for him here.
WTI still pushing here, 72.26 now. Whew. I just wouldn't be short oil.
Yeah, I see Steve shaking his head also. So we'll definitely get him in here in 1 second and be able to talk to him about what is the plays around currency. In fact, here we go. Let's transition over and bring in our man, Stephen Flanagan, our FX educator, longtime JP Morgan, the man behind the currency moves there. How you doing this morning, Steve?
I'm doing great, Howard. Good morning, both of you. Steve, good to see everyone.
Hey, hey, hey. Hey, what's up, Steve? Listen, we've been talking about all morning all of the different geopolitical issues yesterday, and I watched something that I didn't think I'd see, at least not in this day and age. A debate, and the vice president's debate, and they were civil towards each other. I don't even understand what happened yesterday. And you look at the markets today, and it's fairly muted when you look at the stock market. But I'm looked over there, and I just looked at the gold spot gold here at 26.59. There are still some people that are nervous about it, and when you look at it from the currency perspective, which country is using their advantage in the currency markets to buy gold?
Steve, we've been seeing, if look back, central banks, particularly some of the BRIC nations, have been very large purchasers of
Yeah,
gold. Gold is your safe haven play. I was going to point out here to Howard, notice the sharp drop in Bitcoin in a time where we should be experiencing some safe haven play here. I'm very worried of Bitcoin over 60,000. I think it's going to be a trying time because as the geopolitics in the world become more and more, I think people looking for physical asset. Not that Bitcoin has not got a great future, but at the moment, I'm thinking the price action. My forte has been price. I study price,
right.
and the price action that I look at this morning, gold coming off naturally. You're at almost at levels where people are going to take some profits off the table. Likewise, though, look where silver is today. So you have a nice offset there. I'm looking at the safe haven aspect from yesterday, and the play has been dollar up. Dollar MEX traded higher yesterday. You had the euro dollar trading sharply. And, we talked on Monday about the Dixie, and the Dixie held those levels we talked about 109, 142, 192, 11 successive closes in that zone. Today we're back up at that 101.30 area. I look at the 101.35 area as a significant break here, as a signal. So macro trading is how you look at FX. You got to look at all the different
Right.
markets.
Right. And look, I'm looking at the bond market as well, 3.81% on the 10-year. Are people moving money, currencies into, I mean, with obviously rates coming down, home buying in the United States, are you seeing currency moves in order to buy homes and real estate around the world too as well?
Steve, that's a big area of all the politicians' concern, as we even saw last night in the vice president debate. So, yes, I think that you're going to look at home building as an offset to a more stable environment. But right this moment, geopolitics are center stage here, and everybody's kind of waiting for the next shoe to drop after Prime Minister Netanyahu's comments. We're all waiting. What does Israel do? Do they hit the oil supplies of Iran, which is going to pump that price up that much even further in oil? You don't want to, as you said earlier, you don't want to be sitting short oil here and suddenly see that headline come out. So defensive geopolitical plays are in the market right now, and the dollar is a safe haven currency.
Well, let's talk about that. You talked about Netanyahu, Bibi, the shekel to the dollar, right? Are you concerned about the loss there?
Steve, it's not an active currency pair. It's going to be subject to, one-way moves. Certainly flows are going to be highly defensive in that currency pair, as you don't really know. So that's not a long Israel shekel position that you want to comfortably be sitting on.
Okay.
So you're going to have hedge plays against that.
Yeah, and I've had so many people tell me that they can't wait to buy the Iraqi dinar, and I like, this is craziness, right? And of course, Bitcoin now is back to 61,500. Nice pop there.
Yep.
Look, when you look at the currencies right now and in Forex in general itself, it seems to me that there's a big learning curve for a lot of people when it comes to understanding geopolitical. If you were to help someone, say a new trader in the markets, what would you tell them to be the first thing to do in trading? Would it be to trade the dollar to whatever, buy the Dixie? What would you tell them to do?
Well, I mean, you should have a focus on the Dixie. That's the the easiest one to focus on, and it's a little bit less volatile in the sense of your moment to moment move. So I would say that's a good area. But if we want to increase our level, the euro dollar, dollar yen, sterling, and you want to bring North America in, dollar CAD and dollar MEX, because you can just simply trade your North American view around the dollar versus CAD, MEX, and then open your focus up, look at Europe and the euro dollar and sterling. You want to bring the yen in? Yen is a very interest rate sensitive currency. So, clearly, if you want to just say G3, the euro, the yen, and sterling, have them up on your board along with the dollar index.
All right, well, let's talk about that. Japan has a new prime minister, right? Ishiba. Tell me, he scares me a little bit. He seems to be off his rocker a bit. That's me saying it's about foreign country. Oh wow, look at that Humana now, 229 now a share. He's saying he wants to push a strong defense. The last time we heard that was a little thing called World War II.
Yeah.
Right. So what's going on with Japan?
Well, first of all, you have to, as Steve, well, you got to look at the long-term picture when you begin to look at Japan. This guy is a long-time politician. Yep. He's been back and forth on parties, kind of process of elimination, last man standing. You got the job.
There he is. Hi, you're right. Yeah, thanks. Great. Yes.
But I noticed last night, though, that, just kind of offsetting the balancing beam, Bank of Japan Ueda came out and said, hey, we will adjust the degree of monetary easing.
Right.
And then look at the words, if the outlook is realized, but we will take a very careful and determined stance since it takes time. And then it followed up with another one of his kind of allies in the new administration, Akazawa, saying BOJ has to be very careful on tightening rates because we need to be sure deflation is behind us. Keep in mind, Japan has been fighting deflation for 25 years.
Right, they have been, yeah.
So they're not going to be quick to raise rates here. And I think the play could be you don't see Japan move rates for the rest of this year. Although a slight tweaking might be in hand before year end, I don't think it's going to be significant. And I think the offsetting play and dollar yen back at 144, 145 is
Yeah.
clearly showing you the market is not positioned well for a slow move on Bank of Japan's part. So Japan is an interesting one, but you got to look at the big picture when you begin to make
He came out and said, "Look, we're going to raise rates," and then this morning backs off a little. Well, maybe we're not going to raise rates. Maybe we're just going to keep them where they are. And that's a quick turnaround, right? Especially for a newly elected prime minister, right? To backtrack from maybe some election pledges already. So that's interesting.
I
classic
have to ask a
politics.
question because I also saw a thing in the Bank of Japan summary report where they actually mentioned the Federal Reserve and they're watching what's happening in the U.S. before they make their decisions in December when a lot of people were expecting. I saw Mizu and a couple of other of the analysts projecting that might be when they raise rates again. Do you have a view on that? Is that surprising? Is that new? I'm new to the Forex game, so I don't know if
Okay.
that's something that normally happens or is that just something new?
Well, there's your perfect comment. Bank of Japan, you've got an academic, and he's going, listen, we don't need to raise rates. Remember, their goal is to boost household consumption
Right.
through
Absolutely.
higher wage growth. So they know that they're going to introduce inflation. If the Fed cuts rates, Bank of Japan doesn't need to do anything
Right.
because the last thing they want is an appreciating yen back below a 140 level. So long term, I've been trading dollar yen for 40 years. 120 is the low. 160 is now the high because they've identified that by intervening. Somewhere in the middle, guess what? 135, 145. I think everybody's going to be happy. And the Japanese economy loves a stable dollar yen environment.
Yeah,
Right.
and I got to be in Japan in January, so I wanted to come back down a little bit on my
Yeah,
dollar, but it's a little expensive for me over there right now.
sure is.
Okay, let's talk about it right now. Let's move across the pond there into China. I think. Look, the renminbi and the yuan are getting nervous over there. China is watching very carefully. Let me say something. I saw something in the news that I thought was very, very interesting. When Iran went to attack Israel, they called Putin and they called Biden and said, "Look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to be a very strategic attack on Israel, good or bad. I mean, obviously in my case, bad. I don't like it, but
Biden denied that, by the way.
yeah,
Biden said they
okay,
were
Biden
not
denied it.
informed and they had it in the chief of
Okay,
staff said that didn't happen.
but Iran said that they had
Right.
called, and whether they lied or not, they didn't call China. And is China becoming part of the outlier now that we're not having to worry about anymore, or is it? To me, it feels like China is starting to become on the outskirts now with Xi Jinping.
Steve, a great pickup. You're a good trader, and those are the nuances you have to pick up. And here's what I would say: you have Japan coming out of a 25-year fight of deflation.
Right?
Asia has a deflationary problem, not an inflationary problem. And China is quickly coming around to the fact that they've got a deflationary problem. Look
Yeah.
at those. Look at what they just announced. I mean, massive stimulus, a stock market stimulus program on top of the mortgage markets and bank stimulus. So I think what China is extremely worried about their domestic economy, and I think international stuff they would prefer to have on the back burner because the last thing they need is sanctions and things like that to be thrown at them. So I think they are very purposefully stepping away from the political situation, including the with the Iran alliance. There, they don't want to be seen at that forefront
Right.
if things begin to break out. They've got some serious problems in their economy, and they need to get growth. Okay, growth. We're talking what back above significantly above 5%. They're still growing somewhat strong, but a much larger population, they need to have plus 5% growth or more.
Yeah, and as you're right saying that, I had to look it up myself. China's high performance computing industry, that's their quantum computing, is really facing limitations according to Yahoo Finance,
Yeah.
based on the isolation caused by U.S. sanctions. Um, do you see whether it's the Kamala Harris Waltz or Trump Vance? Do you see them also adding more sanctions on them as well?
That seems to be the chatter that they're everybody's saying. I would look for probably a more amicable solution to come out of no matter who wins our election, because the United States clearly in the AI space, quantum computing space, wants to be the world leader, and we rightfully are with so many of these companies located here. And that's going to be something that we want to maintain. I don't know if the whole idea of tariffs in a free market environment, in a global picture,
Right.
is the right approach. So I would hope that cooler heads will prevail and a more amicable solution can be found.
I mean, China clearly, it says, Xi Jinping said several times now that he wants to lead the world in AI, in quantum computing, and has the space in the places to do it. But we haven't seen that with the U.S. I mean, we're now getting on geopolitical a little bit, but the FTC has been pretty harsh on companies trying to merge and things of that nature. But think of it from a currency perspective. We don't really want to get into a currency war with China, I don't think, right?
I'm not really worried about a currency war per se. Perhaps 10, 15 years ago, we would be clearly worried about that because of the treasury holdings. But I'm not sure of the exact figure. But China has sold off a good majority of its U.S. treasury holdings. So a currency war, we don't want the renminbi weakening.
Right.
Because that's only going to flood our country with more goods. And I think that's the key point. You don't want the cheaper goods coming in. So that's where I'm looking for some sort of amicable solution and stable environment. We want a stable China. We don't want a weakening condition because that's going to mean that the currency is going to devalue significantly.
And when you think about trade like in that aspect, especially in the APEC countries, you're looking at Boeing is now on strike. Longshoremen are now on strike. There could be bigger geopolitical issues here when it comes to currency, especially from the APEC countries, Asia Pacific Economic Council countries, the Ring of Fire. For those out there who don't know, look, let's talk about that a little bit. I'm concerned that the longshoremen might cause the dollar weakening here.
I agree, and especially coming out of this safe haven flow into the dollar. Middle East situation calms down. Right. And suddenly you've got a prospect of a prolonged strike in the United States that could take, a significant amount of GDP growth of 0.5% or more. And that could be, a big negative to the dollar. So prolonged strike in the U.S. of, let's say, 4 weeks or more is a big negative to the dollar and could see a significant slide. And in that respect, I'd be watching the dollar yen as a primary focus because that would appreciate.
Okay.
Very cool.
Steve, I also had a question, with everything going on in the Middle East, you had mentioned the Mexican peso as a possible good spot to start to look. Is that affected at all as, they are an oil producer, exporter, minerals, things like that. And with what we're seeing over there, will that get a little bit of a bump maybe?
I think you're seeing that play out today. You had yesterday dollar mex hit a high of 1978. Today, the first female president takes over Mexico. She's very pragmatic, and she's a data-driven president now. And you had Mex hit a low of 1942.5 today. So already you've seen a little bit of an appreciation in Mex, considering that it's still a very high interest rate currency of 10.5%. That's coming off of two decreases of 0.25%. Mex still at 10.5%. This is a high interest rate currency. So on top of the oil play, which we know Mex equates to an oil play, I like the Mexican peso at this level. And I think that this is a good buying level.
Nice. Thank you so much for that. That's what I was curious about. Steve, do you have any final questions for our Mr. Currency here before we call it a morning?
Man, I've known Steve now for a long time now, and I'll tell you, I appreciate all the things you've done, Steve, for us. And as we move forward, I'm looking forward to helping people get on that currency train, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my last thing is your comment about Bitcoin. I let it go before. I will come back and give you my rebuttal there. My
okay.
rebuttal is about time frame. Is you are right. Right now, Bitcoin trades like a tech stock. There is no doubt.
Yeah,
Anyone who says differently is just putting their head in the sand. But what it is it's a risky asset that eventually will become a risk-off investment. In my opinion, it matters what your time frame is on it. If you're looking at it like myself, where I'm saying it's not even for me, it's for my kids and grandchildren. What I'm doing now, I think that's where the risk off aspect comes. It just becomes a matter of what rate do you buy it at, so that would be my answer there. Yeah, it definitely trades. It shouldn't trade the way it is. Those that are on the know when it comes to Bitcoin understand the scarcity level, understand the fact that as governments, I'm in conversations where there are governments that want to own it. Two of the biggest holders right now are the U.S. government and the Chinese government. They're two of the biggest four wallets in the world. So while the U.S. government will act like they don't want anything to do with it, they are one of the largest holders of Bitcoin in the world. And we'll see that change hands. And what we've seen is also, you're seeing a big revolution. Let's face it, it was a tulip bubble back in the day when it was only being propped up by Chinese investors or, a few whales here in the U.S. What we're now seeing is BlackRock and these institutions that are buying, that are putting it onto their sheets, their balance sheets, and as the rules and regulations get better around that, that's when that would change. Would be my takeaway for you there.
that's great, Howard. And I don't disagree with a thing you said. I would even go a step further, Howard, and say, having been a long-term currency trader, I would eventually see at some point, perhaps as a crisis evolves in the financial markets, a blending of the foreign exchange markets with the crypto markets, and you'll begin to see some sort of, stable bitcoins, dollar Bitcoin, sterling coin, euro coin. It's very, very possible. The major thing to get to that point is the anti-money laundering aspect. And
Absolutely. We got to clean the industry up. There is no doubt. Steve's on the board of ABCA, the nonprofit that I run in DC that works in that
yep,
space. And yeah, we're not there yet. Like I said, it's a time frame. If your time frame is 6 months, it's a risk on asset. Absolutely. If your
that's
time
right.
frame 60 years, it becomes a little bit less risky. And I think we'd say
Correct.
that about most commodities out there. So
That's right.
thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have you back here on Friday. So I want to start to ask you about some of those things. We'll talk maybe a little bit more that intersection between stable coin CBDCs and what you see, how that might affect the FX markets, because I am seeing a huge amount of stable coins being, bought and deployed in emerging nations where they have triple digit inflation, where they have problems. So I'm going to give you a little preview that I'm going to be hitting you up on Friday on that.
That's it. Bring it on, Howard. Great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us at Quasar Markets Live. I'm back at 12 with our trading mindset coach, Agnieszka Wood. We're going to get you all settled down with everything, all the noise, break through that noise, get our traders back in place. And then we've got Scott Bauer from Prosper Trading Academy from the floor of the CBOE. I always call it the CBOE. Steve has corrected me. So on the floor of the CBOE today. And then I will be back at 2 o'clock to give us our crypto update. So we've got a big day on Quasar Markets Live. Thank you again, the two Steves, for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.